Hello everybody, this is Rivecho with another second channel video for Rive Extra. One of my favorite genres of Pokemon video are the team improvement videos, where people take a look at the in-game teams of important trainers and try to make them better. I wanted to do one of my own, but I decided to approach with a different perspective. Usually these team improvement videos focus on making the teams harder to fight against, which makes sense. Pokemon is a battling game, and unfortunately a lot of their battles just aren't hard. So of course it would make sense to make these battles more challenging. While I do think this is a good way to go about it, I want to do this in a way that's more interesting to me, however, tailoring teams based on the character. Champions are some of the most interesting characters in the franchise, with many of them brimming with personality and history. So it would be great if their personalities and interests shine through in their teams. These teams may not be the best or most challenging, but I did want to make each of them iconic in one way or another. And Pokemon, in the end, is about using your own unique team. It feels like many of these more powerful trainers in the series reuse the same powerful Pokemon, which just make them all blend together. While I will try to keep these teams relatively challenging, the technical aspect is not my focus. I won't be talking too much about movesets or abilities. These will be more vibe-based selections, and I want to make sure that each team feels iconic and unique to that champion. Additionally, I want to use Pokemon exclusively from each champion's respective generation. I feel like as the champion fight the top trainer in the region, these teams should be a showcase of the Pokemon you can find in the region, a celebration of the new Pokemon. There will be a couple of exceptions, but those will be well justified. With the intro out of the way, let's get into the teams. We'll start off with Blue. Blue already has a great team which technically fit my requirements. Of course, he only uses Kanto Pokemon, and it's a diverse and powerful team, representing Blue's desire to search the region for the most powerful Pokemon and use them to win. However, there are a couple adjustments I'd make. We'd keep his starter, Pidgeot, Rhydon, and Alakazam the same. The remaining members of Blue's team are dependent on the starter he picks. Out of the pool of 3, the 2 which aren't the type of his starter are on the team. If Blue doesn't have Charizard, he uses an Arcanine, which I think is a great pick, no complaints there. However, I do have issue with his Gyarados and Exeggutor. While Gyarados is undoubtedly a powerful Pokemon and mark of a good trainer, it's not very unique. Additionally, it has a type overlap with Pidgeot, and if Blue has Charizard, half of his team would be Flying type, which would be a glaring weakness that Blue would normally try to avoid. So instead of Gyarados, I decided to give him Golduck. It's a bit of a weaker Pokemon, but I think it fills the niche on his team better. No important trainer in Kanto, or really at all, uses the Golduck on their team, so it would definitely make him stand out more than if he used Gyarados, which is very common. Additionally, Golduck just gives off a cunning, arrogant, and intelligent vibe that fits Blue's personality very well. Then we have his Exeggutor, which similarly would be a strong and iconic pick, but also has a type overlap with Alakazam, so I'd replace it with Victory Bell, which would be another mean-looking Pokemon, which would be right at home on his team. Also, as someone obsessed with winning, Blue would love to have a Pokemon with the word victory in its name. Overall, I think this change is subtle, but I honestly do like it better than the original. Next up, we have Lance the Dragon Master, or at least Lance the Bird Master, since he exclusively uses flying types. While the team undoubtedly consists of powerful Pokemon, it's infamous because a single decent water type has the ability to sweep through it, which is unfortunate. Additionally, having 3 of the same Pokemon on the team is incredibly lazy team building, and unacceptable in my opinion. While the team is undoubtedly iconic, it's iconic for the wrong reasons, and people usually make fun of it more than they respect it, which is a shame because Lance is a very cool character. Lance has a quote in Pokemon Masters saying not all dragons are dragon type, and I decided to use that as inspiration for this team upgrade. Perhaps in universe, this could be a character arc as to why he got stronger. Initially, as an Elite Four member, he had a one-track mind, thinking that strength would be training up only powerful Pokemon with little regard to team diversity and covering your weakness, which is why he had all flying types and 3 members of the Dragonite line. However, between then and the Gen 2 games, he realized that strength came from team diversity, and he opened his mind to a more unconventional team, but one that was ultimately stronger due to how they worked together. This growth is why he was able to become champion. Also, just as a side note, since Lance is a Kanto character initially, and the Indigo League covers both the Kanto and Johto regions, I think it's okay if he has both Kanto and Johto Pokemon on his team. So now let's get into his improved team. We'll keep his Charizard and of course his Ace Dragonite. Charizard is on the team because it's the most dragon-like of the Kanto starters, so why not include the most dragon-like of the Johto starters for Alligator? Next, we'll include Ampharos, which in the lore has a sort of dormant dragon's blood that manifests when it Mega Evolves and gains a Dragon type, but even without Mega Evolution, it's a fun addition to the team, and despite being one of the most iconic Johto Pokemon, it's not on any major trainer's team, so having it on the champion team would be awesome. Next, to match Dragonite, we have Johto's pseudo-legendary Tyranitar. Finally, we have Steelix, which represents a sort of bridge between Kanto and Johto Pokemon, being a Kantomon with a Johto evolution. Additionally, it's dragon-like enough, so it would be a fun addition. Lance's new team is just as fearsome, but more powerful and diverse, providing a great challenge and making it a truly memorable battle. Third, we've got Steven. For this team, I wanted to focus on Steven's main character trait, being that he collects rare gems and rocks. So we'll start off with Sableye, which also literally collects gems, so they're a match made in heaven. Next, we've got Cradily. Steven, of course, would come across fossils in his hunt for rare stones, so he would be likely to use a fossil Pokemon. It's also on his original team. Third is Lunatone, which is another strange rock you would be interested in, and battle-wise it has Levitate, the Psychic type, and Ice Beam, which provides some cool diversity and coverage for his team. Fourth is Relicanth, an ancient rock-type fish that literally has a map leading to buried treasure on it. Treasure hunter Steven would love to have this on his team. Fifth is Flygon. Steven travels around a lot, especially in sandy, rocky areas like the desert and caves, so having a Pokemon that can not only fly him around at high speeds, but also be able to safely traverse these desert, rocky environments would fit him. Additionally, Flygon is very much a fan-favorite Pokemon, so having it be on the team of a fan-favorite champion would just make it more beloved. And of course, we keep his ace Metagross. I really like this updated team. It keeps the same vibe as his original team, while also being more diverse and unique and in line with his character. Next up is the other champion of Hoenn, Wallace. Wallace's initial team is an example of an actually good monotype team, and the only update it really needs is to replace the non-Hoenn Pokemon. However, I do think it could also be changed to reflect Wallace's more flamboyant personality, being a performer and contest master. Of course, we'll keep his ace Milotic, as well as the dancing Ludicolo. The next two team members will be Gorbis and Pelipper. The Clamperl line is not really used by anyone in Hoenn, which is a shame because it's pretty cool, so Gorbis would be a great addition to Wallace's team and perfectly fits his vibe. Pelipper is a good replacement for Gyarados as well. Fifth, we have Swampert. It's a replacement for Wishcash that's just more iconic, and his final team member will be Masquerain. This is a bit out of left field since Masquerain isn't a water type, but it evolves from a water type and is based on an aquatic bug, so it does fit well enough. Additionally, I think it does fit Wallace's contest profession, as Masquerain is a flashy Pokemon, almost dressing up in a costume with its wings looking like eyes, enough to actually intimidate the opponent. I feel like Masquerain is a sleeper pick, but one kind of perfect for Wallace. With that, we have Wallace's new team. Next up, we have Cynthia. Cynthia already has about as good as a team that you can get, with a full team of powerful and elegant Pokemon matching her perfectly. However, there are a couple of improvements we can make, at least by the rules of this video. First is her only non-Gen 4 Pokemon, Milotic. Milotic is not only a Gen 3 Pokemon, but also a previous champion's ace, so it's a bit of a weird pick. In Diamond and Pearl, she had a Gastrodon instead, which technically is a unique Gen 4 Pokemon, but it doesn't really fit her vibe at all. However, Sinnoh doesn't really have a lot of unique water types. The only one that's unique is Lumineon, and it's elegant like Cynthia, but a bit too weak. However, I realized what could be a perfect replacement, Phione. Now, hear me out here. While Phione is a mythical, in-universe, multiple of them can exist. In fact, a bunch of them do exist, they are just extremely rare. Phione is tied to an old Sinnoh tale called the Sea's Legend. Cynthia herself is interested in studying the mythology and history of Sinnoh, so it's very likely that she would have come across the story, as it's in the Canalave Library in modern Sinnoh. She investigated the legend, and through her investigations was able to find a Phione, which she caught. In this way, Phione is a great fit for Cynthia, as it fits both her interest in the mythology of Sinnoh while also being a relatively powerful Pokemon, and especially iconic for a champion theme. So theoretically, the final member of Cynthia's team is Togekiss, which is completely fine and fits our requirements perfectly. However, I did actually swap it out for a shiny Hisuian Braviary. We know through Scarlet and Violet that Hisuian Pokemon, despite most of them dying out, could still exist in the modern day. So perhaps Cynthia, in her studies regarding the history of Sinnoh, was able to find or evolve a Rufflet into a Hisuian Braviary. Additionally, the flying psychic type is a great addition to the team and represents the intelligence of Cynthia. The fact that she's actually an academic and kind of a nerd is an overlooked part of her character. And the reason why it's shiny is because Shiny Braviary is badass like her, and the colors match perfectly. It honestly looks like it could be her ace. Overall, I think this newer team with Fiona and Hisuian Braviary makes her team go from amazing to perfect. Next up we have N, who's a bit of a weird case for being a champion, but he's close enough and technically beat Alder, so I guess he is the champion. Honestly, despite being supposed to be this epic final showdown, N's final battle team, other than his legendary dragon, is really underwhelming and not great. Like, I know N's entire gimmick is that he doesn't have a permanent team, but rather just recruits Pokemon as friends and then releases them after the battle is over. But that still doesn't mean that N couldn't have recruited some better Pokemon for this final fight. For this team, we would of course keep N's legendary dragon as well as his Zoroark, his unofficial ace. I'll also keep his Caracosta. However, the three final team members are new: Reuniclus, Escavalier, and Mienshao. These were just some powerful Pokemon that I picked based on vibes. However, now let's improve the team of the true champion of Unova, Alder. Alder has a unique down-to-earth energy which is already reflected in his team, but I think we can polish it. Of course, we can leave his ace Volcarona, as well as his Bouffalant and Druddigon. However, for the next two team members, we'll have Sigilyph, which is a good fit for Alder's Native American inspiration, while also being a very cool and unique Pokemon, as well as Gigalith, another underutilized but cool Unovan Pokemon that fits Alder's vibe, while also being very powerful. But for the last team member, I went for something special: Basculegion. Basculegion evolves from Basculin, a Unovan Pokemon, so it is still related to Unova. Additionally, this alludes to the fact that his ancestor, or even a time-traveling version of himself according to some theories, was the ancient Hisuian hero who did use a Basculegion. Overall, I think these changes fix the fact that Alder's team is kind of underwhelming. To round out the trio of Unovan champions, we have Iris. Now, Iris' team is, in my opinion, the most difficult champion team, at least in difficult mode of Black and White 2. She also has a really fun theme. Rather than dragons capturing the princess, she's a princess who captures dragons. However, like Lance, she adheres to the fact that not all dragons are dragon type, and thus has a unique, diverse team of draconic Pokemon. For this fix, I'll just replace her team with a fully Unovan, type-diverse team of Pokemon that are dragon-like. This team is Serperior, Scolipede, Archeops, Electros, Crocodile, and of course her existing ace, Haxorus. Next up, we have the champion of Kalos, Diantha. Outside of being a champion, Diantha is a celebrity, being a famous actress and model, so I kept this in mind when remaking her team. First, we have Furfrou Debutante form. Furfrou is actually a somewhat decent Pokemon, and pretty iconic in Kalos due to the many trims it has, changing its look from a shaggy, unkempt dog to a truly high-fashion canine. The Debutante form specifically fits really well with Diantha. Next is male Meowstic, since Diantha is definitely someone who would have a prim and proper boy cat, like Meowstic. Next up, we'll be keeping her Aurorus and Gourgeist from her original team. Aurorus because it's legitimately beautiful, and Gourgeist as it's a feminine Pokemon that offers type diversity and also has an interesting size gimmick. Her fifth team member is Noivern, which I think is a powerful addition that's elegant enough, with the fur color it has reminding me of a lot of fur coats. And finally, her ace is no longer Mega Gardevoir, but rather the mythical Diancie. First of all, their names sound very similar, and Diancie is a fancy, beautiful femme, just like Diantha. Even though it is mythical, like Fiona, multiple of them can exist in canon, as they are just a transformation of Carbink, so there's no issue in giving one to a trainer in my opinion. Finally, it can also Mega Evolve, so it's just kind of a perfect ace for Diantha, probably better than Gardevoir. I'm actually really enjoying this new Diantha theme, and I think it would be really iconic compared to the fact that normally Diantha's team is considered a laughingstock. Next up, we have the first of two Alolan champions, Kukui. Kukui is a professor who researches moves, and he's also very active in the field, so I'd like to reflect that aspect in his team. Of course, his first team member is the starter strong against the players. The second team member is Passimian, being an active Pokemon that would be a good companion for the professor's travels. Third is Alolan Executor, a sort of mascot of Alola and an iconic Pokemon not really used by any important trainer, so it would fit well on Kukui's team. Fourth is Oricorio, specifically the Powwow style. Oricorio is another mascot of Alola, basically, having a different form for each island in the region, so that's a good enough reason already. However, Oricorio's signature move, Revelation Dance, changes type based on what form it's in, so it would make sense that Kukui would pick one up to further study Revelation Dance's unique properties. Fifth is Komala, which I chose because it's not only a cool Alolan Pokemon that got no love, but also because it has a unique niche due to some of its moves. Komala's ability Comatose basically makes it act as if it's under sleep status, despite not actually being asleep. This allows it to use a moveset of just Sleep Talk and Last Resort consistently. Last Resort is a move that can only be used once. All other moves have been used once. So, since you used Sleep Talk before, you've filled that requirement. And of course, Sleep Talk has a special interaction with Comatose, with it being able to use with no restrictions at all on Komala. So the special moveset could have been something which Kukui actually discovered in Universe while researching moves, which he would then use on his champion team. Finally, we have his ace, Dusk form Lycanroc. I chose this Dusk form over his existing midday form since Dusk Lycanroc is more fit to be a champion's ace, and it also has special moves that the other two forms don't have access to, which Kukui would be interested in. Overall, I think his team is honestly great. Next, we move on to the second Alolan champion, Hau. Hau is laid back and nonchalant, but is still unexpectedly powerful despite this, which I tried to reflect in some of the team selections. So, Hau's new team is his starter, Alolan Raichu, and then Comfey and Minior, both being cute, seemingly weak single-stage Pokemon, but with the potential for great strength and also the ability to really mess up your team. However, the final two members of the team are powerhouses, showing that Hau is truly a great trainer. First is either Blacephalon or Stakataka based on the game version. This is because in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, Hau fought these Ultra Beasts in the climax cutscene, so it's possible he caught them and added it to his team. It would be fun to see an important trainer use an Ultra Beast on their team. And finally, we get to his ace, Komo'o. Komo'o can show Hau's growth from his roots, being not only a powerful pseudo-legendary but also a fighting type, essentially showing that he came from a fighting type specialist family and has surpassed his grandfather. The Alolan champions were kind of overlooked, but I think these teams can make them stand out. The penultimate champion is Leon from Galar. While Leon is a surprisingly difficult battle, I feel like his team isn't that great, just being a mishmash of a bunch of different Pokemon from across the generations with no real unifying theme. So let's fix that. First, we'll include the starter Good Against Yours, and then the knight, Corviknight. We then have another warrior with Sirfetch'd, a sword and shield Pokemon like Aegislash, except it's from Galar. Fourth is the noble steed, Galarian Rapidash, while fifth is the dragon Dragapult. However, I did struggle a little bit with his ace. While GMX Charizard is okay competitively, it's just extremely lame that his ace is Charizard out of all Pokemon. It's really boring, and Leon's Charizard I feel like is just mocked more than it's praised. So what is a unique Galar Pokemon that's also powerful and cool enough to be a reasonable champion's ace and celebrity on its own? The perfect answer is Toxtricity. Toxtricity is really cool, being a literal guitarist Pokemon, so it being a sort of star is right down its alley. Additionally, it's strong and also has a Gigantamax form. Overall, I think that this team is great. Not only do I really like Leon with the Toxtricity, since Leon himself is a sort of king of the region, I ensure that a lot of his team has that medieval fantasy theme, which I think is really fun. Finally, we have Geeta. She infamously has a pretty bad team, and even though it was improved in the DLC, it's still not great and has no cohesive theme at all. However, since the only thing we know about Geeta is that she's the top champion with some interest in Area Zero and in charge of a shadowy Pokemon League organization, we don't have a lot to go off of. However, I think we can make her team iconic in another way, battle style. While most battles, including champions, involve them throwing out a Pokemon and leaving it in until it faints, only very few of them ever switch Pokemon out. So making Geeta a champion whose team revolves around the strategy of switching in and out would instantly make her stand out among the roster of champions and actually make for an interesting battle. So let's get into it. First, we've got our Ace of Swords, Glimmora. Glimmora's job after being sent out first is to set up hazards on your side of the field, such as Toxic Spikes and Stealth Rock, making it hard for you to switch out. Next up is Palafin, a pretty unique and strong Pokemon that nobody in the game uses for some reason, and I don't know why. However, it would be great for the team, and since it transforms into a Tear form after switching out, it would fit the switching theme we have. Next up, we've got Cyclizar, whose addition to the team is twofold. First, its signature move, Shed Tail, sets up the substitute before switching out, which is OP especially when combined with its Regenerator ability, so it already fits our switching theme well. But Cyclizar is also important as the modern form of the Paradox Legendary. Since Geeta would of course be interested in the Paradox Legendary showing up, she would likely use a Cyclizar as a form of investigation. Fourth, we'll keep her as Spathra, but give it Speed Boost and Baton Pass, which can allow it to either set up for a sweep or allow another team member to gain its speed boost with Baton Pass when switching out. Fifth is either the Paradox Slitherwing or Iron Moth, dependent on your game version. These are both Paradox Pokemon that would be a complete mystery to the player at this point in the game, so it would be a cool surprise to see them on Geeta's team. It would also show that she did investigate Area Zero herself, perhaps spending some time in the upper layers of the crater, catching these Pokemon before being forced to leave. Having the champion use a Paradox Pokemon would be really awesome and make her look strong, intimidating, and mysterious. Finally, for her second ace in a way, we have Goldengo. Goldengo is a pretty special Pokemon, being the 1000th Pokemon in the Dex and difficult to get in game, needing to find 999 Gimme Gold coins. Of course, being such a special Pokemon, I know why they didn't just give it to anyone, but it would be great as a member of Geeta's team, both as an extremely powerful and rare Pokemon to act as her ace, putting her on the same level as other champions, and also a Pokemon to signify her wealth and status as the top champion. I think that this team would make Geeta a lot more interesting as opposed to being a laughingstock. So those are the updated teams I made for the champions. Don't take this too seriously, this was just a spontaneous fun idea I had. Please let me know in the comments if you have any ideas for any new teams for the champions. And if you enjoyed, please like the video and subscribe for more content. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.